Okay. So I'm going to mute one of the students who is on the phone. And um, so today we're going to talk about the eye, and next week is on the ear, and then the following week is digestive system. And then you have your practical number 4. So really we have about um, this week, if we're done, then we will have 1 week, 2 week, 3 week. Yeah. So it's really 3 more weeks as far as the lab section is concerned. So your fourth practical will be on December 9th. Okay, so today we'll do the eye, next week the ear, and then the digestive system. The So I don't know if you guys have been using the um, ANP support site. Look under my organization. That's where I post it. I also posted today, for example, a video on the eye and the ear. That's another way that you can study as well. So the eye is a special sense, or one of the special senses. We're going to look at vision, and we're going to study the model of the eye. All right. And then we're going to look at the model, not just the eye, but there's accessory uh, structure, different muscle on the eye. I don't know if I have time to look at the shape of the eye. If I don't cover it, then it probably won't be an exam. If I cover it, then it'll be on the exam. And there are many different tests that one can use to determine how healthy the eye is, and and you can certainly do some of those tests. All right, so here's one model of the eye. Okay, and typically this model of the eye has 3 layers, if you will. The outermost layer of the eye that you can see is the hard white part right here. This is known as sclera. Sclera. And the this part that is transparent, it has to be transparent so light can go through, if you will. Okay, and this part of the eye that sort of like come out like forward like a comb. So if I do a say a sagittal section of the eye like this, and then we're going to look at it in a lateral view, it will look something like this. Okay, where you have this part right here, it sort of like come out, okay, like a horn. It's sticking out like a horn. Okay. So another word for horn is corn. Corn really means horn, right? So you know, you ever you know what a horse with one horn is called? A horse with one horn. What is that called?
A unicorn.
Yes, a unicorn. Do you have a unicorn stickers in your bedroom? Okay. Now, and then like Thanksgiving, you might have this horn that has a lot of fruits in here. You know what that thing is called? A horn that has a lot of fruit, food, and stuff. It's called the horn of abundance. Okay. Um, so we call that a cornucopia. right? Cornucopia. So now you know what a horn is. This thing that is coming out, right? It's known as the cornea. So when you say your cornea, is that part right there is cornea, and and the outermost layer that you see, this layer right here, that's the sclera. Okay. Now, if you look at the cross section of the eye has three layers. Okay. You have the sclera outside, and then you have another layers that is inside, but it has a lot of blood vessel. I don't know if some of you might have a question in the exam, in the brain lining the ventricle, are ependymal cells, but the cerebrospinal fluid come from the blood, and the blood is bringing up or brought up to the brain, to the particular place next to the ventricle. What is that place called? Do you remember? It looks red next to the ventricle. Red next to the ventricle. You don't remember? So let's say, I'm trying to draw it. This is your lateral ventricle. That's the lateral ventricle. And right here is about the third ventricle. And the third ventricle is connected to the fourth ventricle. Right? Next to the ventricle, where you see red area, that is known as the choroid plexus. I don't know if you remember. It's choroid plexus. Okay, so choroid is like a network of blood vessels, if you will. So the second layers of the eye is the choroid part. Okay, the second layer is known as the choroid. So that means there's a lot of blood vessel there. And then you have your innermost layer, the innermost layer, this, it has a lot of photoreceptor cell. Okay. And that is known as the retina. The retina. So from the outer, you have sclera, then you have your choroid, then you have your retina, right? So that's from the outside in. 2, and then 3. Okay. Now, the choroid layer is the second layer, has a lot of blood vessel. The retina is the layer that has a lot of photoreceptor cell. Okay, and the photoreceptor cells are of two types. Cells. They're either cones or rods. Okay, what's the difference? Well, they look also different. It's like rod would look like this. And while cone will look like this, they kind of look like cone. So you have rods, cone, rods, cone, rods, cone, right? So they're receiving light, if you will, or motion in terms of movement. So easier to remember is that cones be the letter C. So that's the function, is detecting color, right? Whereas rods is more like for movement, right? So cone for color, so detecting color. So people who have color blindness, for example, either have the cones that are out of place or they have defective cones, right? So for color blindness. And by the way, in this model, right, as in also in this model, it just basically is like the little view. Now, how do you know if this is, let me just go back and I have to erase all of this. Okay. So how do you know if this is the right eye or this the left eye? Is it right eye or left eye? Anybody know? Does anybody know? Okay. The answer is it's the right eye. And how do I know? Well, this structure right here, okay, is known as the lacrimal gland. A lacrimal gland is located right up here about, you would say, 10, 11 o'clock, okay? So it's always going to be in that position, right? And so the only way that this, you would know that this is a right eye is to look for this lacrimal gland. If the eye is such that the lacrimal gland sits over here, right? And again, it will be up here, like around 1 or 2 o'clock, then it'll be the left eye. Okay, that's the left eye. And this is at 1 or 2 o'clock. And this is like 10, 11 o'clock. Okay? Now this is very important because you have to know that the lacrimal is on the lateral side. Lateral. That's the same thing as lacrimal. Lacrimal gland. Okay. So it's very important to know that the lacrimal is on the lateral. It's always going to be on this side, right? Either here or here, right? So that means that anything on this side is lateral, anything on this side is medial. Okay? This above here is superior, this below is inferior. Okay, so one more time. This is lateral, this is medial, this is superior, and this is inferior. Okay. Now, if you look at the eyes is actually controlled by 6 muscles. Okay. The 6 muscle that controlling the eye movements are. So let's say we just look directly from the eye. Okay. And here's the little hole. The hole is known as the pupil. It's the pupil. Okay. Remember, pupil constriction, pupil dilation. There's a muscle that sits up here because we're doing cross section. This is known as the superior rectus muscle. Now, the word rectus means straight. So, if you might see like, boot camp, the sergeant might say, soldier, stand erect, right? So you stand erect mean as straight up, like that. You don't hunch over, but you straight up. So that's rectus. Rectus means straight. And a lot of muscle you have, it has the Latin name rectus in there too. Rectus femoris means straight muscles of the leg. Rectus abdominis, this is the muscle that goes down here, straight down. If it's go diagonal, then it's no longer rectus. It'll be oblique. Okay? And we have 2 muscles that control the eye. We call it oblique. Now, if this is the lacrimal gland over here, right? So there's a muscle over here. This was known as the lateral rectus. That's the lateral rectus muscle. And there's another muscle down here, right? And you get the idea. Okay. So this muscle down here is below, right? So we'll call this inferior rectus muscle. And then there's another muscle over here that is not it's the opposite side of the lacrimal gland. It's the opposite side. So it's more in the middle. It's more in the middle. So we call that is the medial rectus muscle. And there's another muscle that sits on top. There's another muscle that sits on top right here, but it's not straight. It's kind of like go backward. Okay, it goes across and then it go backward. So essentially, what it's doing is that it run inward. Let me do this. Okay, so it runs. No, let's do black. Okay, so it's actually it runs inward like this, and then backward, inward like this, and you know the nose. This is someone's nose. Okay, so right where the ridge of the nose, there's a ligament called the trochlear ligament. Okay, trochlear ligament, and this ligament is where this muscle go across, and that muscle is above, right? So we call that superior. Is above. But it's not rectus, it's oblique muscle. Oblique meaning diagonal, if you will, right? And so you can have muscle that goes down here like this. We call this the external abdominis oblique, for example, because it goes down. Whereas the one that goes straight down is called rectus abdominis. So there's this muscle that runs medially toward the nose and then it go backward. That is the superior oblique muscle, right? But it go medially. So likewise, there's another muscle down here, okay, that goes across like that. Okay, so that's not above, but that's below. So we call that is the inferior oblique. Okay? So there you have the sixth muscle, the rectus abdominis. Sorry, not rectus. Superior rectus muscle, lateral rectus muscle, inferior rectus muscle, medial rectus muscle, superior oblique muscle, and inferior oblique muscle. Okay. Now the three cranial nerves that controls the eye movement. Most of these is the oculomotor, the third cranial nerve. Okay. The fourth cranial nerve is known as the trochlear. Why is it called the trochlear? It's because it innervates this muscle that goes to the trochlear, right? So it's known as the superior oblique muscle is innervated by the trochlear cranial nerve. The abducen innervates the lateral rectus muscle, this one right here. So that's when you contract, it pull, you know, so the muscle function is for contraction. So the lateral muscle here, and if it's contract, it will pull the eye outward, right? So the pupil will go outward. So the pupil would be abduct from the midline, hence the name abduction. So the lateral rectus muscle contract by innervations of the abducen cranial nerve, it will pull backward, the median will go outside. Okay? All right. Now, from this model, you can see this muscle here. Can someone tell me what's the name of this muscle is?
Occipital?
Occipital muscle?
Oh, no, that would not be there. It would probably lead to the occipital.
No.
No.
Here's the eye. And now we're looking at sort of like a little bit anterior view, not directly, a little bit on the left. Here's the lacrimal gland, right? And now you have a muscle that is on the same side of it. So there are 6 muscles around the eye. So this muscle next to the lacrimal will be what muscle? Is it lateral rectus? Is it superior rectus? Is it medial rectus? Or is it inferior rectus? You know what I'm talking about?
Lateral.
Yes, it is a lateral rectus. So that's your lateral rectus. And up here you can see a little bit of it. Right here, the red is the muscle. What's the muscle? What's that muscle? Right, it's above, so it has to be
Superior.
yeah, but superior what? Oblique or rectus?
I'm gonna go with oblique. It doesn't look straight.
No, it is rectus. You should have gone with your first instinct.
Oh well.
Okay. Now, it is the superior rectus. It's okay. You can miss it now, but you make sure you know it later on. Now, there is, you can't see it because it takes some time, but the idea here is that this little part here, it starts there and then it goes backward. It cuts off. Okay. So that would be your part of the superior oblique muscle. Okay. So you have that little nub is part of the superior oblique muscle. Okay. And this one muscle here, and the way that you see is you look at the fiber, see how the fiber goes like that, and it actually goes backward. Right? And so what is this muscle down here?
Inferior.
Inferior what?
Rectus.
Yes, it is inferior rectus.
Because if there's a superior, there has to be an inferior. Usually that means there's only 2 of them.
Right. But there's 2 kinds of inferior. There's inferior rectus and the inferior oblique. And the direction is different. If it goes backward, right, it's the rectus muscle, one of the 4 recti. But if it goes across the eye, it's oblique. Okay. Now, this might be hard if you don't know your orientation. What is this muscle then? And look at the fiber. It's going this way. It's really going backward.
It's medial.
Medial what?
It's the opposite of the other side.
No, but medial just describe the location. You have
I know.
The muscle is medial rectus. Think of rectus.
Are they all rectus? All around all muscles around all the eye is all rectus, but there's lateral, medial, and superior, inferior? Is that they're all rectus?
Yes,
right?
There's 4 rectus, recti, and 2
Recti.
oblique.
Okay.
And there's 2 obliques as well. So the oblique one this is one of the oblique one. This is superior oblique. Now, the muscle oblique goes across this way, right? So if you say, let's say the anterior view, you're looking like that. The oblique, the rectus muscle like this one is going backward. This one go back to the screen. go back to the screen, go back to the screen. But this one right here goes across the screen, then it's oblique. This one goes across the screen, is oblique. But this is the superior oblique, this is the inferior oblique. Right. Okay, so what can I attest you around here? What do we say this clear thing is? What is that? The transparent one.
The lens?
Huh?
The
No, we haven't started the lens yet.
Oh.
It's the cornea.
Oh, the cornea.
That's the cornea. What about this right here?
The white part of the eye? Is this?
Yeah, that part, the outer part.
The outer part. Oh.
The answer is the sclera. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now, okay, a little bit harder now. This is the lateral view, right? And so if you reason that this is the lacrimal gland, and it's on the left, right? It's the lacrimal gland. So what is this muscle here? Now, mind you that the rectus means straight backward. So all the 6 muscles go backward. Sorry, all the 4 rectus muscles go backward like this.
It's not the lateral rectus?
It is the lateral rectus. Okay, that is the lateral rectus. Now this one up here also straight backward, and it actually all links to a ring, the annulus ring in the back. So what is this muscle?
Superior rectus?
Yes, beautiful, superior rectus. Now look at this muscle here. This muscle here, the fiber goes this way. It actually kind of like perpendicular to this side, right? It's going to go this, and it goes under the eye, right? So what do you think that muscle is?
That is it's inferior rectus.
No, rectus, it has to go backward.
Oh,
right?
Lateral.
Yeah, so this one is going to, huh?
It is a rectus or not a rectus?
It's lateral rectus.
It's not.
It's lateral.
But it's not a rectus.
The rectus muscle below that go backward would be inferior rectus.
Oh, inferior
But
goes
this one is going to go under and across the eye.
So it'd be a lateral
under and
something.
across.
No, it's known as the inferior oblique.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yes, beautiful. It's the inferior oblique. Okay, good. Now, also, yes, inferior oblique. In the back of the eye, you see the little thing that's sticking out that actually also going to continue on as well. Okay, that is the optic nerve. That is the optic nerve. Remember, the optic nerve is the second cranial nerve, right? So basically, the light is going to go back and touch the back of the eye, the photoreceptor cells, and the photoreceptor cell communicate with the bipolar neurons, which communicate with the ganglion neuron, and the axons of the ganglionic neurons, and a whole bunch of axons group them together as a nerve that go to the back of the eye. Okay, that is known as the optic nerve. The location where the optic nerve sort of like exit the back of the eye, there are no photoreceptor there at all, right? So if the light hits that spot, you wouldn't see anything. So we call that is the blind spot. And I'll show you, we can do a test to show you what happened when light hit that. It's a lens, it'll be like the blind spot. Okay, now here's the back of the eye now, right? First question. This is an easy one, and it gets progressively harder. What is this muscle here? This one's going to go backward.
We're going back to the superior rectus.
Good. That's a superior rectus. Beautiful. That's a nice one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's easy. Now, what about this muscle here?
That is the medial rectus.
Beautiful. It is medial rectus. How do you know it's medial rectus?
Because it doesn't have the yellow thing.
Go ahead.
It doesn't have the that thing sticking out on that's the top of the other side.
Yeah. We call that the lacrimal gland, by the way.
The lacrimal gland. Okay.
Yeah. Now, the other way I also know is that this right here is always going to run toward the nose. Okay. This one's always toward the nose. So your nose is going to be over here, right? This guy has a cryptic nose. So your nose is always medial, right? Now, this is the inferior portion. So what is this muscle up here?
Oh, that's a good one. It might be a superior one, but it also might be a lateral. No, it's not lateral. We're in the medial section. It wouldn't be medial. It would be lateral.
It runs toward the midline, so it goes across. So it's no longer rectus, it's oblique.
Oh.
Right. So you have two muscles above, the superior rectus and the superior oblique. The superior rectus goes backward to the back of the eye, whereas the superior oblique goes across toward the nose. All right. So what do you think this is, number 12?
Number 12 is the thing sticking out from the back?
Yes, this thing right here.
Oh, someone answered it.
Oh, what is it? Yeah, it is the optic nerve. Good. All right. Now, here is in the context, the eye in its socket, right? With the ridge of the nose. Okay, so here you have the nose, the ridge of the nose. It looks like it is part of the nasal bone. And here is your ethmoid bone up there. Ethmoid bone. Okay, now this muscle, what do we say this muscle is now? 1.
That one is the superior rectus, and 2 is
Good,
the
beautiful.
lateral
Yeah, that's
rectus.
it. Number two is lateral rectus. What about this one right here? 3.
Well, that's oblique.
Yes. So is it this and this is the same muscle? Okay. So you can't just say oblique. It has to be superior oblique. So 3 will be superior oblique muscle. And what cranial nerve innervates this muscle, do you think?
The occipital?
The occipital? Occipital is a cranial nerve?
No. Sorry. I just realized the occipital has to do with the hole in the back of your head, which is not the proper way of saying things. It's not this occipital phase. That leads to, we actually probably have said it before. Leads to which part of the
Here,
brain?
that is known as the trochlea.
Oh, the trochlea? Okay.
Yeah. So do you see how the muscle goes across the trochlear ligament? So the trochlear nerve, right? 002, that's the fourth cranial nerve. Innervate the spell, right? And this one right here, what cranial nerve innervate this muscle? So now that the pupil point out this way, it go outward. It go away from the midline. Remember the key word is away from the midline. If you move away, we call this abduction, right? If it's move away, is to abduct the pupil. So you're looking outward. And so that's the abducen. 002 touch and. So the abducen is the sixth cranial nerve. All right, let's look at this one. What muscle is this for?
That's the medial rectus.
Good, beautiful, medial rectus. Okay, now what about this one right here, 5? Look at the fibers.
Inferior rectus. Oh wait, is that the
No.
inferior rectus? Oh, that's a oblique one. That's a inferior oblique.
Good, inferior oblique.
Because if there's a
The-
superior, there has to be an inferior.
What?
If there's a superior, there has to be an inferior.
Yeah, if there's lateral, there's medial. If there's, yeah, exactly.
And if there's more than one of those things, they're usually not superior or inferior. It's usually greater or something else.
That's right. Or you can say if they're straight or not straight. Right? It's called abdominal. So
They're either oblique.
Oblique. Straight is rectus. Oblique,
Rectus.
across, diagonal, that kind of thing. So across is oblique. Across is oblique. So this is oblique, and this is oblique. Okay. All right. So moving on. So you here you can see a beautiful, nice. The reason why they call them rectus muscle now, and it may feel you might see better because they're straight down, and likewise this part is missing, but this is straight down as well.
It's on a slant going downward, but straight.
Well, I mean, because what happened is that
It's like
huh?
when you know a glass, like a wine glass, how it's shaped like a sort of oval, but there's a circle, and then it goes into a like sort of a that thing.
Yeah, but see, it's a little bit different because
But a little more
eyeballs.
like around.
Right, because it actually come backward and it cross over, right?
It would be more like
Off the kayak might really talk about it. The optic chiasma is where they cross over, and this is where it sits right above the supracella, sella turcica, if you will. Okay, so here's where the crossover, so that this optic nerve continue on to the left-hand side of the brain, and this is the right eye. The left eye will cross over to the right side of the brain. Okay? So there is a crossover at that optic chiasma. Now we're only looking at so they're kind of like toward the nose, as you will, okay, toward the bone in the back. Okay, now You can start seeing a little bit, and it'd be trickier and say, okay, what do you think this muscle is down there?
That is the inferior rectus.
Good, beautiful. It is the inferior rectus. Okay. Inferior rectus. How about this muscle again?
That one? That one is the medial rectus.
How is that medial rectus?
No,
Just
that's
follow
not
it.
medial. Oh, wait, that's what you're pointing to? Oh, I thought you were pointing to the pink thing. That's medial. That is oblique and superior. Superior
Yeah,
oblique.
superior oblique. Okay, what about this? Do we know it yet?
It's the. Does it start with an R? Or S?
Yeah,
Scala.
it is the sclera. What about this coney part? Well, there's your hint.
The conium?
Think of a horse with one horn.
A unicorn. Cornea.
Yeah. All right. Now you see this thing right here. That's the pupil, right? The opening is the pupil,
Mm-hmm.
and the all that area is muscle that is controlling the pupil. In other words, open or not, okay, like that. That is the retina.
That makes sense.
That is the retina. Oh wait, sorry, it's not the retina. What am I talking about? It is the what? How do I? Okay, I know. Sorry, it's not the retina. The retina is the third layer of the eye. Okay, that is known as the iris. The iris of the eye. Right. They also have photoreceptor in there as well, so that depends on what kind of photoreceptor you have. And when light hits it, right, and it reflected out, and for some people, it could be blue eye or dark eye and so forth. Yeah. Now this is the posterior view. We'll see similar things. So basically, you guys have to know it. This would be one more time. What's number one?
One is the lateral rectus.
Yeah, lateral rectus. Good. How about this one? Two.
That is the superior oblique.
Good. What about three?
Three is the superior rectus.
Superior rectus. How about four?
Four is the medial rectus.
Medial rectus. Beautiful. How about this one? Five.
That is the inferior rectus.
Inferior rectus. Beautiful. What about this?
That is
Six.
the six. I know six. It's the optic nerve.
Optic nerve. Okay. Alrighty.
That was fun.
That's similarly. What about this blue pigmented color?
Iris.
Good. That's the iris. Alrighty. All right. Now you got the idea. Now, let's say we open the eye now, right? And you can see is that this right here, there's an opening, right? There's an opening here. So this is where the optic nerve will exit the eye, in the back. Okay. And the outermost layer of the eye, this one right here, we said is sclera. Right. The retina is all of this. This is all your retina. Your retina. And the middle layer that has a lot of blood vessel, okay, the middle layer is known as the choroid, right? The middle layer is the choroid. Now, the choroid, as it moves forward to the eye, right, it becomes this. And that is known as the ciliary body. This is the ciliary body. Okay. The ciliary body, and you really can't see it, but the ciliary body have these little ligament that is attached to it. I'm going to go draw these. Okay. That ligament is known as suspensory ligament. Suspensory ligament. Okay. And that suspensory ligament is controlling this structure here, right? Is known as the lens. And the lens is actually malleable. It's malleable meaning it can change shape, right? If this thing is contract, it will pull the lens. You know, if the muscle relax, it'll fall backward, and it'll pull on that suspensory ligament so that the lens now is flat, right? So your lens can have two shape, either the ball shape or the flat shape. Okay, and the function of the lens and the cornea as well is to deflect the light, if you will. Okay, so in other words, as light going through, right, in a thick object is going to refract at the greater angle, as opposed to here, which is less angle. Okay. What's the purpose of that? Okay. The purpose is that you want all the light, you know, going to go through the pupil and through the lens, right, through the lens here, and go back, right, into a place that has a lot of cones and rods. Now, cones and rods are all located along here. Okay, they're all, a lot of them, they're all around there. Okay. But at one place that seems to have a lot of rods and cones, okay, is a little pit. And the pit is known as the fovea centralis. This is I'm going to show you where. So the key word here is pit. Okay. Another word for pit is fovea centralis. And what that means is that all the light touches that. If it stimulates next to each other, then you see an image clearly. If it basically stimulate here and here, then you see it, but not clearly. Right? You don't see the detail, so it's kind of fuzzy. Right? The reason why do I wear glasses is because, you know, I have hyperopia, for example, or farsightedness, whereas myopia is nearsightedness. The idea here is that you want the lens to change the shape, okay, to change the shape. And changing the shape causes the light to refract it. Is it more of a big angle or little angle? Okay. And typically, and I'll explain to you next time, that our eye is most relaxed when it's in emetropia. What that means is that when you look away, okay, you look away, that's just when your eye is most relaxed. And when you are relaxing, you don't innervate the ciliary muscle. In fact, the ciliary muscle just kind of pull back. And when it pulls back, it pulls on the suspensory ligament, and the lens will be flatter, right? And then their angle will the light will come in and stimulate this. Okay, go back and stimulate that area. Okay. Now, when you're reading, however, reading causes the ciliary muscle up here to contract. And when it contracts, it moves forward. And it moves forward, now the lens is more like a ball shape. Okay, a ball shape. And then there's more refraction. So, I can read things clear, read something near or far object. But, your reading is very near, right? Reading takes a lot of energy. And then over time, like 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes reading, your eye will get fatigued, tired, right? And it's the best way to do is just look away for 20 seconds. So it's recommended that you should read 20 minutes and then look away for 20 seconds. So that way you relax your eye. Because when you're reading, you're really contracting that muscle. Okay? So we call this near point accommodation. Right now, I want you to know the lens, the suspensory ligament, ciliary body, pupil, you saw that. All this is just the order of serrata. It's the order of serrata. Okay. And the three layers of the eyes are sclera, the outermost, choroid is the second, and the retina is the third. Right? And so similarly, what do we say? If I say ID the middle layer, okay? ID the middle layer, what would be the answer? ID the middle layer.
Is that the sclera?
No, the sclera is the outermost.
Oh, it's the one with the C. Forgot what it's called.
Not C. C will be, no. I think you're talking about cornea. Oh, yeah, it is with the C. It is the choroid.
Yeah.
Okay, now, do you see this little area next to the optic disc, if you will? This right here? The blind spot, that's the blind spot. Also known as the optic disc. Okay, this little yellow body here, it's known as the macula lutea. Macula lutea. Now, in the macula lutea, you see a little pit. You see a little pit that looks like this. Okay. And that pit is known as the fovea centralis. All right, so the yellow body is known as the macula lutea, but in there is the fovea centralis, and all the light wants to do is to hit on it, and then so that all the light, even though the one up here could hit there, right? But you don't want that. So that's the functions of the lens, is to see that this light going like this and then refract it so that it can go to that target right there. Right? So you want to go to that fovea centralis that way. Right? So like this one here too, you want it to refract it. So how much of that refraction, okay, of an angle depends on the lens. If it's more like a ball, it's going to refract at a greater angle, okay, than angle. Then if it's flat, it's less of an angle, like that. Okay. So refraction is really should be, we're talking about this angle refracted relative to this angle refracted, right? And if you don't want the lens to be like a ball, you look away. Look away, the lens will be flat. The lens will be flat. Okay. So from this, you can see the pupil and the iris. Okay, you see the cornea. What do you think this is? Does anybody know what that might be?
It's not the iris. It's not the. It's the thing around the color. It's not the sclera. Is it called the sclera?
No, this is the sclera.
Hmm.
You know, it's a second layer is known as the choroid, right? But the choroid is what you see in the back, but it comes in forward, it's the ciliary body. It's a muscle, ciliary body. Okay? That's a ciliary body. So the black one is called the ora serrata, mean jagged. Like a serrated knife, the ora serrata. So it's all the black thing is the ora serrata. See all of this is the ora serrata. Right. Okay. Yep, so that's the ora serrata. What about this? The innermost layer. What do you think the innermost layer is? The innermost layer is the eye. Remember I told you the eye has 3 layers: sclera, the choroid. What's the innermost layer?
Was it the retina?
It is the retina. Now, what happened is that in the back of the eye, there is a fluid, okay, that sits in back here. This is known as the vitreous humor. Vitreous humor is kind of like gelatin. You read gelatin? So all of this right here has kind of like, it's a little more thicker than liquid. It's gelatin. Okay? And this gelatin, in fact, pushes the retina against the wall. But, if someone who involved in mixed martial art and you can hit something, you hit in the eye, you can rupture the blood vessel. You can see all this. This is a blood vessel there. All this is blood vessel, right? You can have a hemorrhage in the eye, and then you lose the vitreous humor, and the retina can be falling off. Okay, it does no longer attaches to the wall. Then we can call that, it's the retina detachment. Okay, the retina detachment. But make sure you know that the vitreous humor is fine in the back of the eye. All right, so here now you can see that the the yellow body. Does anybody know what the yellow body is called? Okay.
The cry, I don't know, something with a CH that you said, right?
Choroid? No, this is
No?
the yellow body.
Oh, sorry, I'm confused.
This is the, actually it's a macula lutea. No, macula lutea. Macula lutea. All right, lutea means yellow, but it's macula lutea. Okay, actually, the yellow body is corpus luteum. That's something that you see in the ovary. That's corpus luteum. This is the yellow regions of the eye. This is in the ovary. Okay, so forget about that. Sorry. Now, this place is the yellow region known as macula lutea. Okay. Now, what about this right here?
That's the lens.
Yes, exactly. That's the lens. Okay. Now, again, this is the cross section. Sorry, sagittal section, right, of the eye, and you see that this is the cornea. Then you have your choroid. This is the choroid. Choroid come forward to become the ciliary body, and it holds on to suspensory ligament, right? And suspensory ligament hold on to the lens. That's the lens. Okay, that's the lens. So in fact, the lens separate the eye into two regions. Okay. This region that is in the back is known as the posterior cavity. And the region that is above, again, what do you think the name of the region above the lens is called? It's not superior.
Anterior.
Yeah, it is the anterior cavity. Okay. In the posterior cavity, you have a fluid. I alluded to you earlier. This is known as the vitreous humor. Okay, so the vitreous vitreous humor. That's the gelatin liquid. Whereas in the anterior cavity here, right, it's not a vitreous humor, but it's known as the aqueous humor. It's more liquid. It's not as viscous as the vitreous humor. Okay. Now, the choroid, interestingly, we'll make this a blue eye color. Okay. So the choroid give rise to the ciliary body, but it's also give rise to this as well. Okay. And that blue thing is known as the iris. All right. It's the iris. The iris, in fact, separates the anterior cavity into two. All right. It's called the anterior chamber and the one in the back is known as the posterior chamber. Okay. Anterior and posterior chamber. It finds within the anterior cavity, but it is the iris that separates it. So basically, this will be the posterior chamber, and this up here will be the anterior chamber. And the reason why they had different name is because sometimes there's things that get behind the iris, and there is a opening here called canal schlemm that sort of like takes the fluid away. If the canal schlemm is blocked, you can develop glaucoma. So I'm going to talk about that disease a little bit later on. Maybe we'll save it for next week. Okay. All right, let's do a couple more, and then if I don't finish it, I'll finish it next week. Okay, so here you can see all this brown thing, that's the iris. All of this, it's supposedly shows you are the photoreceptor cells. Photoreceptor cell. Receptor cells. Okay, you have the transparent part is the cornea. And you can see the pupil there, that's the pupil. All right. And then the brown thing is the iris. All right, so here's also a good idea that shows you the right eye. You can see what we talked about already. The choroid, the outermost layer is the sclera. Oh, here, this is sclera, the outermost layer. Then you have your middle layer, the choroid, and then you have your third layer called the retina. Okay. And how you can say, here's the optic nerve, here's the optic disc, and the little pit, the fovea centralis. Okay. And this is the inferior, this is the medial rectus muscle, medially. Then you have, this would be your ciliary body. That's your ciliary body. Okay. And this will be the lens. And then, of course, the iris. And then this is the cornea. And then you have the ora serrata there. Okay. And then from here, back here, this is the posterior cavity. And up over here is the anterior cavity. All of that. Is the anterior cavity. And the anterior cavity is further divided into the anterior chamber and posterior chamber by the iris. Okay, this is separate the anterior cavity into the two chambers. All right, so all of this is basically taking from the APR. Okay. And I expect you to study this, and then next week we'll come back and look at some of the tests that you can look for. Okay? For example, here it shows you for rectus muscle. Okay, and you can see that we already went through them. This will be your superior rectus. This is your medial rectus. This is your inferior rectus. See how this one goes across? That's your inferior oblique. This one also goes across. That's the trochlear ligament right there. So this is your superior oblique muscle. So this all the blue colors, the anterior cavity, the anterior chamber within the anterior cavity, the posterior cavity. Here you will find what kind of fluid. You'll find vitreous humor. Okay, vitreous humor. The second layer, see all this blue color, second layer, choroid. You might see that again, ciliary body, and you can see the little thing right there, the fibers that comes down. That's the suspensory ligament. Okay. Then you have your cornea, nice blue color. The iris, you can see that. Iris is different from the pupil. Pupil is a hole. You have your optic disc first. Let's see the iris. Sorry. This is the iris. This is the lens. And you can see the lens is held on by the suspensory ligament, which holds on by the ciliary body. Optic disc, where the optic nerve will come out. The ora serrata, jagged edge, pupil. The innermost layer, the retina. The outermost layer, sclera. Suspensory ligament. Again, different iris, lens, pupil, sclera, suspensory ligament, right? The optic nerve, and so on. All right, so I'm going to end the discussion there, and then next week we're going to look at the some of the tests with the eye. So you start learning about different parts of the eye now. All right. Are there any questions? Okay, there's no questions. I will